Hello Perl folks, this is explaining week 2 activities for MySQL. So be sure to use the latest organizer file, and let's click on if you click on the program, the running program itself, we'll see this. And there are some options that just about work, but you'll just have to make sure that they do according to the new fields if there are any. Update Ohlone classes, update instructor emails, update Ohlone degrees, and update program info. These are the 4 that you should get running in this program. Put out emails for an instructor who teach TBA. That's not part of this application right now, but I'm just leaving it there anyway because I do use it. So this is a program you're going to fix. Now if we press click to proceed on updating classes, it should come here that explains to the administrator of this system what to do, how to get the file in there, and you simply copy and paste. Now the particular one you'll be using here will be courses, CS courses. If you click on that, here is the list that it needs to accept and process. So pasting this in here, which pretty well matches, you notice the example here, right? Pressing submit should update the list. Now of course it's not working quite right, obviously, but your job of course to make sure that it does, and all I can tell you is very close to working, except for this one, the last one here, update program. The program is in place. If you click proceed, it will go to the right place. Update assessment tracker with current list of programs. It shows the way the program should look like, and then you have to paste these in that format, but it doesn't work right now. Okay, you'll have to just go over this. This is one routine creates the form, and then the other routine processes the data once you press submit. So both of those are in place. They have the right names and everything, but you just have to go over them to make sure that 1, it goes into the program table, and 2, that it accepts that particular type of data here. Okay. So you're going to take this file here, which looks like this, and we're going to go over it a little bit in a minute. First, before doing anything with this program, you should learn about references from the 2 links at the bottom of the MySQL assignment, right? The one that was the last assignment. Be sure that you understand references because it's full of it in these programs that handle databases. So the program already works except for the last routine. All these routines are very similar, so it's not that hard to modify them to deal with one table or another. And of course it's going to work with your tables that have the gen account, and make sure it goes on test DB6, and make sure the new fields, of course your job is going to manage the correct fields. Add a lot of print statements. There are already quite a few in there for debugging purposes. Just comment them out when everything's working okay. You don't have to delete them. Watch out for currently strange behaviors. Okay, so this one, this execute or die, this simply does not work. But what does work is, as you'll see in the program, we set it up. Let me show you right now. We set it up right here under begin. We're using CGI carp with carp out, and we open a file to append to called final project error log. You can call it whatever you want, but that will work fine. And carp out log. Okay, this little piece of code here will give you wonderful error messages every time you access the database. If there's anything wrong with the database, you will get a message telling you pretty precisely what happened. and this looks something like this. This is a file I've been working with for a while, up to November 25th. Organizer CGI table classes, line 216. Something happened there. Unknown column department in field list. So you see, so it tries to help you out. It's a lifesaver, let me tell you. Also, there's another way to prepare your SQL command, such as insert into Gen89 instructors values, right? And then you're supposed to enter your variables here. Instead, you can use question marks, and in the same order as a question mark, then in the execute, you provide the variables there. If you use this method, the MySQL is going to make sure that no special characters will mess up your database. For instance, if you had something like don't, any apostrophe breaks the MySQL if you don't use this approach to input your data into the field. Okay. Now here's down here, of course, are these files that you're going to be using. Please use those in organize.cgi to populate the instructors. This is for the course. Here's a note. There's a program field now in almost every table, and depending on which table it is, or yes, which table, we're going to either put the abbreviations in the program, or we're going to put the code, the program code, and I'll try to let you know about this. For table SLO, duplicate the data from the SLO table. So I gave you the code here. Insert into your Gen SLO table and select from SLO. There's another table in testDB6 which already contains data for you to use to get started with anyway. Those will be the first records. Those should be your first records, okay, doke? For assessment, I also have a little bit of data in here, and you can just use this in the shell from assessment. Table data, we'll see about how to populate that later. And degrees, here's the file to use for that. And the programs. Here are the programs. Notice that all the programs that have type I will have an abbreviation, but all the other departments or programs, such as instructional services, P is president, student, something I forgot, and administrative services, that field will be blank. So here you just have a tab, an empty tab here. Make sure that the program works appropriately with this type of setup. Okay, so that will be it for this. Now we're going to take a look at the program itself. I explained a little bit organizer CGI, which is right here. Okay, so the database is testDB6. We open the database. Right now it's going to PIO, but we'll have to open, obviously, something else. Wait a minute. Yes, this is not a very good example because it uses in the program, folks, you cannot put anything in this. You cannot put a user in this argument. Okay, I'll have to fix that for you. There are some things that some of these do not apply, these initialization. Okay, so just don't have to look too hard at this. This is an interesting little piece of code that you find sometimes, clearing the buffers. And when you have learned references, this is one of the first thing you'll notice. Menu equal square bracket, you notice, and inside the square bracket there is a list. Now notice that this list matches what we have from update classes to update program. This is what will appear right here. Okay, update programs, classes. And so once you have covered references, you understand that this is an anonymous list. This is an anonymous, array. It has no name, but it is an array, and the fact that this list is surrounded by square bracket, this returns a pointer to where this list lives in memory. So this menu variable here is nothing but it contains only an address. It points to an array. And then you also get from these let's make this a little bit bigger, from these tutorials on references, that to get back the actual value that these pointers are pointing to, first of all, you have to know what type of pointer it is, and we know it's an array pointer, right? So to get back to the array itself, you simply put an @ in front of the scalar variable which contains the address. So that points directly to the array, and now we can we have access to this array in both ways. We can access it either as a pointer, which is very useful when you're dealing with CGI commands and MySQL, or you can just use it as a regular array if you prefer. Same thing with this. Well, our classes, we initialize that. Class name is going to be an empty array. Those have been commented out here, so not everything here is being used as I said. Okay, I think we can skip to the main program. So remember how this works, right? Unless param. So if there are no, if this program has not been called from a submit from a form, there's no param statements. Therefore, this returns blank, and then you go ahead and print the options and print the link. And both of these functions are down at the bottom. We can see print options, start the form, which is another subroutines here. Pop-up menu, right? This is the CGI equivalent of creating a pop-up menu. The name is selection, that's understandable, and this is what's important. These CGI functions which create form elements use pointers as opposed to arrays. You see, menu, remember, is this array. It points to an array of which contains this information right here, right? So all we have to do is say value. These are the values of the pop-up menu, and we point to an array. Very simple. This creates, right? This creates this pop-up menu right here. It's as simple as that. Then, of course, we're going to have a lot of hidden fields. There's one that's very important in this program called last in capital letter. And so what we do is we just put a value in this field, and it's hidden, so nobody needs to see it, but it still will become part of the param statements. So this creates the first page, right? This creates the first page that you see right here, and here's the link back to assessment project down here. Which should be, it's a print link. It's the next one. Print a paragraph marker and print an anchor tag, and the reference is going to go to organizer. I guess so. Back to the assessment project database options. That's the link we just saw, right? So there we go. This whole page here is created by these two functions. And this is in case now. If it is coming from the form, then you see our field in capital letters last. If that equals to main, then we can check exactly which particular selection here it's providing, and this is why we say things like, well, first of all, we get the selection itself from this from another field called selection, and now this selection should match either the menu 0, which is the first item in the menu, or the second, or the third, and the fourth, or the fifth. And so, for instance, if it's equal to the classes, then we're going to go to the routine input dataTel class section, and we pass the handle for the database. Okay, so let's go to that little section here, right here, and you can see it prints everything that we saw. I'll give you an example and so forth, and it's nothing too complicated. Notice that in this case the hidden field is again last, and this time is going to say process class sections, because it's the next thing we want to do if somebody has pasted that list. And if you go back to the menu, if its last is not coming from main, then it must be coming from somewhere else, and it could be coming from process class section. And if so, let's simply go to the menu process class section, and again we pass the handle. So that's the main program right there. This is all it can do. Either it can provide the form or it can process the data. So it's always two routines. Here's the form, and here's the process, and they basically all the same. So quickly we take the handle, we take in the data, which is a list, right, of classes, and we're going to immediately split that data by the return characters to separate it into individual records, and we put that in new data. Here's a bunch of commented things. This one had a particular problem where we always found a blank on the last record, so we just fixed that quick and dirty by just adding a blank at the end of the array. Then for each MyNewData of these records, we're going to chop, because there's usually one of those characters at the end. We're going to split the symbol of the class to the new title, and so we split it on the pipe, since everything's pipe delineated in these programs. And you notice that the classes, we need to pull out CS-149. We need to get rid of the class section, because there will be several of these classes, section 1, section 2, section 3. So you only need one. These are dummy variables to split on the dash, because there's two of them here. And we're interested in the new department. And then we recreate the symbol properly so we can use it, D1 dash and D2. That's all we need. And then we create, what do we do here? Select ID from classes where symbol equal, and we're going to be looking for that particular symbol to see if it already exists in the database. And we prepare this statement, and we execute, and we fetch row. It's only going to give us 1. It should only give us 1. And then we get, okay, so now this is the row. Yes, let's take a look at this row. Notice that we fetch a row, we fetch the row in a hash reference. So we can ask to get this row any way we want, and one way to do it is to get it as a hash. And so every field name is a key, and the data under that key, of course, is easily gotten. And so what we're getting here is simply a pointer, right? So to get to the pointer, we use this symbol as you learn in those the tutorials, and you pretend it's a hash, a regular hash, and you use your curly braces, and this is the particular field name that we're interested in, ID, and we can store that. We can store the content of that ID right here. So if there is an old ID, then we can update this record. Update classes, set title equal. Notice the question marks here. Department, new department, and so forth. Prepare, execute. Otherwise, if it's a new record, then the SQL is going to be slightly different, right? It's going to be insert into classes, values, and so forth. And again, you got your question mark here, which is going to have to show up in the execute. Symbol, new title, new department. All this data has to be in the execute to match these question marks which are in here. Excuse me, they're here. Okay, so that's a typical example of processing the file into and to put all the data into the database, and this is the typical form to show up on the screen. Most of those are pretty well already set, so that's it. You got one for emails and process emails. You got one for degrees, process degrees. You got one for the TBA emails, which you can just skip, and then input the programs. That one is okay, but the process one will have to be gone over. And then you just have a couple down here, and that's all. There's nothing else to do with this program. So this is week 2, folks. That shouldn't be too bad, except for last minute changes. Okie doke. All right. Thank you very much.